Sure. There's gender wage gap and anti-purity culture.
Yeah, we'll probably actually agree on the anti-purity culture.
Really?
Yeah.
You're anti-purity culture?
Well, it depends on how it's defined. How would you define it?
Prescribing virginity and less sexual, essentially sexual encounters before marriage as pure and virtuous.
Oh, well then, no, we would disagree.
How do you define it?
So for me, purity culture would be like absurd things like you have to wear a burqa, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely prescriptions towards purity. I mean, but that's really circular.
Yeah, well, that's a circular position, unless you have specificity, right? So we'll start with this idea of why do you think prescribing virginity is bad?
Well, I don't think virginity is real.
What do you mean?
I just don't think it's something that you can quantify.
Yeah, no dicks in your vagina. It's quantified as virgin.
If I just have sex with women, I'm a virgin?
No.
Why?
Well, so...
There's no dicks?
Yeah. So you would still be a virgin to a man, right? At least from that perspective. From my perspective, I would...
You define virginity as no dicks.
Yeah. I was being facetious,
okay.
obviously.
So
I said no dicks in your vagina.
I'm a virgin and not a virgin.
Yeah, if you have sex with somebody, you're not a virgin.
Well, what is sex?
It would be the art of intercourse. I don't think women can really have sex with each other. It's just mutual masturbation. That's it.
So are we just defining sex as penetration?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just think...
Or blowjobs. I think blowjobs too.
Really? Blowjobs count?
Mm-hmm. As a form of like sodomite sex.
So if I give a blowjob, am I a virgin?
Well, your mouth's not a virgin.
I mean, this seems really inconsistent. I'm just...
Yeah, so when we're talking about virginity, I don't think that there's anything that's really confusing. So women can masturbate each other. Men can masturbate with women, right? But when you're talking about virginity itself, and by the way, all of those things are bad, right? All of them are bad. So if you
I disagree with that.
Yeah, okay. Well, so I'm just talking about purity culture, would say all those things are bad, right? So when you're talking about virginity, it's like, yeah, it's pretty simple. Like no dick, no D in the V, and you maintain the virginity.
Is this like a medical or like a body standard?
No.
Or so this is just an experience thing?
Yeah.
How far does it have to go in?
I mean, if it goes in at all.
So
like
just the tip.
Yeah.
You're not a virgin anymore. So the reason that I think
it gets touched.
It gets touched.
It's over.
So my vulva touches.
No, I'm talking. Yeah,
the vulva touches.
It's penetrative sex. Yes.
It's penetrative sex. So the reason that I think that this concept is just not like a functional definition is because sexual experience is very complex.
Sure.
And I think it's absolutely silly to say that me having just sex with women and being a lesbian somehow puts me in a condition that's any less than if I were to have sex with a man.
Why is that silly?
Because like what is the delineation here? If
that you're masturbating.
If they like
is there a penis?
Vaginal,
is there a penis involved?
I mean, if there's a dildo, does that count? Like if then like I use a dildo on myself, does that count?
When we're talking,
if she's holding it,
that would be called what? Masturbation.
Right. So I'm wondering like what are we measuring here?
We're measuring your purity when it comes to how many dicks you've had in your vagina.
Like human dicks?
Yes.
Why?
Because that's the metric for virginity.
Yeah, so I just think it's obviously, again, I don't think it's a good working definition because it reduces sexual experience down to not only a heteronormative narrative, but also that sexual experience can be done in a multitude of ways to where I would say that what meaningful difference is it that you're crossing this threshold?
That there's a male penis inside your vagina.
What does that do?
It removes your virginity.
What? That's circular. Like you're not. Virginity is just having a penis inside you, removing your virginity. Like
okay, I'm sorry.
Why?
Let me make sure I get this right. Can you have sex without a person?
No. Well,
I
I mean,
don't know.
you can masturbate.
Wait a second. You can't have sex without another
Are
person
we
there?
counting masturbation
Well,
as
what
sex?
counts as sex with another person then? Kissing?
I would say, I mean, again, when we talk about intercourse, I think it's really hard to have like these
Is
clear
kissing
lines.
sex?
No.
What's not sex about
I
it?
would say oral, vaginal.
What's not sex about that stuff? This seems like you have the inconsistent position. Why isn't kissing sex?
Why isn't kissing intercourse? Because
Yeah.
I would say
No,
intercourse.
sex.
Well, what's the difference between sex and intercourse?
Well, intercourse, I think something enters, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So like if you can have lesbian sex, nothing enters, right?
Well, you can have something enter too.
Is lesbian sex sex?
Yeah.
Okay,
of
so
course.
then there's a difference between sex and intercourse?
Sure.
Okay, so then-
I use those interchangeably.
So then why
no,
isn't
I'm fine with that
So
delineation.
then why isn't kissing sex?
I would say the use of essentially the inclusion of genitals would be sex.
What? Why?
Because like you can like kiss your mom, and I wouldn't say that that's like.
So if you
sex.
lick a guy's balls, did you have sex with him? Just once?
I think that's definitely a sexual experience.
Did you have sex with him though?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. So
Yes.
licking balls is
Licking balls is doing the
That's
deed.
sex?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. What about licking his feet?
Oh no, gross.
How come that's not sex?
I think that can be a sexual act for sure.
Just like licking the balls?
Yeah. So
It sounds like you have an arbitrary metric, and mine's way more specific.
I think when you and I are talking about sexual experience, I think you're proving my point. That sexual experience can be very variety and nuance.
So the idea, though, of intercourse, thing enters,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're talking about virginity, right? So I think that there's men too inside
Uh-huh.
of the kind of religious focal who would say that if you gave a blowjob, you're not a virgin. I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, and I think that, and that's kind of one of the issues that I have with it is to, I think one of the most common questions that teenagers ask, like, I've done X, am I still a virgin? And it's because you have this notion that when you do a specific sex act, somehow you're a different person than the person you were prior to the sex act.
Yeah, something definitely changed.
What?
You had sex.
Well, what I'm talking about, like character or who you are as a person, because, and this is where I think
That's
a lot
not
of,
why, but that's not why people select based on virginity.
I think this is a prescription of purity culture.
Yeah.
Is that somehow you are tainted, you are less than, you are impure. That your character, that your value as a person has lessened because you've had this experience.
No, I think it's just based around preference. So I just think that the idea is very
But
simple.
I'm saying that's what purity culture implies. That if you've had sex, you're less pure.
Yeah. I think that this is based around the preference that men have of women having less sexual partners.
I think it's not an innate preference, it's a societal one.
No, it's innate, and I'll demonstrate why it's innate. So, do you want me? I can
Sure,
demonstrate
go
it.
ahead.
So, do you agree with me that paternity tests were not always a thing? In fact, they were very recent.
Yes.
So, how to diminish your paternity before there was paternity tests?
Well, someone not being polyamorous.
So, only having sex with them?
Well, you can not be a virgin and still be monogamous.
Sure. But one way that you can assure that your offspring is going to be yours is to only be the only person that woman's ever slept with.
How do you determine that?
Well, they used to have hymen checkers, things like this.
That's not an effective determinant of virginity.
It's
You can lose your
it's-
hymen riding.
That's
riding
true.
Your back.
That's true, but it is a pretty effective metric. Considering
no.
technology, yes, considering technology,
no,
it is.
It's not.
Yes, it
Hymen
is.
tests are very ineffective.
When there's no other test, what other test is there?
That's my point. There is no test.
Yeah, right. So then,
Yeah, so
if
hymen
the
tests are not a good litmus.
Calm down.
I'm not.
If it is
please don't.
if it is the case, though, that's what's there, right? And the only way that you can determine whether or not a child is yours if the woman is sleeping with you, of course, it would follow that you would be revolted by women who slept with a lot of men.
But you can't determine that if the hymen is there or not.
Why would that? Listen, first of all, yes, that's a good indication they're not a virgin if the hymen's not there.
No, like I
Yes.
said, you can lose your hymen can break, like horseback riding.
Sure, but it's not common.
Falling on a fence.
Not common.
It is common.
No, it's much more common that
Yes.
the hymen breaks how? How do most hymens get broke?
I have no idea.
With a dick.
How do you measure that? Are you...
We could look at. Do you want me to look it up right now?
Sure, yeah, I would love something.
Just put most common way hymen breaks.
What'd you get?
The most common way is sexual intercourse, followed by tampons.
Okay.
Which makes sense to me.
Tell me the methodology.
Just people
Research has been
report.
done shows there's no scientific way to tell from the inspection of your hymen whether you did or did not have intercourse.
That was not what was said. What was said is that the most common way a hymen gets broken is with a
Again,
penis.
it says that based on a lot of research, shows there's no scientific way to tell from the inspection of your hymen whether you did or did not have intercourse. And that is your position, right?
No, okay. What's the most common way for a hymen to break?
Again, are you saying that the hymen is a scientific way to tell if you've had sex or not?
Only if there's no other scientific way available. It would be the only scientific way.
It's not a scientific method. And there is no other way. That's
Well,
my
yes,
whole
it is a
point.
scientific method, whether you think it's good or not.
It's not a scientific method.
Yes, it would be a scientific method.
not.
Okay, so tell me this. How would you make a determination, right? If the only thing available to you was to check a hymen, that was the only thing that was available to you.
Again, it's not a good criteria.
If you were a man, right, that's the only way to check for chastity or virginity, and women were told and trained not to break their hymen, to say,
How
hey,
are you trained not to break
by doing
your
activities
hymen?
that would break them.
Please. That is just absolutely ridiculous.
But happened.
I don't care if it happens.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not,
nice, but
it's
yeah.
not an effective way to determine if someone has had intercourse
I think
or
that
not.
if there's no other way around, it's the most effective way.
It doesn't mean it's effective, though.
It's just the most effective, which
It
is my
doesn't
statement.
mean it's effective, though.
Just the most effective, though.
We're saying we agree.
Yeah, so great. So then it's the most effective way.
not
So
effective.
if it's the most effective way, but when there's no other way, and
The reason
Yeah.
that it's not effective is because there is no medical condition of virginity
nobody's saying it's a medical condition.
or physical condition even.
Well, I would argue that
There's no physical assessment that you can do to determine if someone
yeah,
is
I think
virgin or not.
virginity is conceptual, sure. Yeah. But I think that you can still have signs for a concept. Like, I think
Again, it's not effective. Like, obviously, the hymen can be absent and someone be a virgin, and the
Yeah.
hymen can be present and have intercourse.
I'm not disputing that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but that was never
Then
in
we agree.
dispute. What's in dispute is how you could tell about, hang on,
sure.
about why it is that a man would want to select for women who have low body counts. And the reason they'd want to select for them is because,
Well, now we're going into body count, which is different than virginity.
no, it's not.
Yes, it absolutely is.
No, you can't have bodies and be a virgin.
Well, body count is different than virginity.
No,
Like, count is just
okay.
a running count,
Yeah, yeah.
where like virginity
So,
is
but there's a way
technically
to
zero.
determine zero count would be a virgin. That's what we mean by virginity. Zero body
And
count.
again, like this is where I just think it's ineffective because sexual experience is an important thing when analyzing. I don't when it comes to men
Okay,
wanting to
let me just figure this out real
when
quick.
one second.
Go ahead.
When it comes to men having this preference of guaranteed paternity, I don't think that this is an innate preference
Why?
because of essentially how different mating strategies worked in different tribes.
Okay, how did they work?
There were obviously polyamorous. I mean, even in Rome, in more modern day
pagans,
patriarchy, like they had like wedding orgies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was just in terms of making sure that children were born, so that the community could survive.
Well, let's test this out. I just want to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
If your son came to you and said, "Mom, I have this woman who's only been with one man, and I have another woman who's been with 250 men. Okay, I'm trying to figure out which one I want to be with for the long term, right? Which one would you tell him you would think would be the most monogamous?"
I don't think you can determine monogamy based on body count.
Well, that's not what I asked you.
I wouldn't have an answer.
So if one had only, now what if one had never slept with anybody and the other one had slept with 200? Which
Okay.
one?
I wouldn't have an answer.
You wouldn't have an answer?
Yeah, I mean, even if I look at my own relationship, whatever you consider to be a body count, mine was higher than my ex's, and he's the one that cheated. So I don't think that determines your
Well, not in every
your
case.
faithfulness,
Sure.
your
not-
monogamy.
I think that there are women who've had sex with hundreds of men who could be monogamous to one man, whereas a virgin could cheat on him.
Sure. Okay.
I
We
totally
agree.
concede that there's outliers to everything. We're just talking about likelihoods.
I don't think that, I mean, I could even argue that because you have less sexual experience, you would be more inclined to stray if you become bored, the relationship becomes stale. I don't think that is the ultimate reason why people cheat.
Do you trust Pew Research?
I think Pew Research is a good source, yeah.
So according to Pew Research, women who get married as virgins are far less likely to cheat than women who don't.
Yeah, I think there's a correlation versus...
Up to, well, actually, it gets higher by everyone. The metric gets higher per
Is
one.
this the same study when it comes to... I'm sorry, is this cheating?
It's not a study. These aren't studies.
So are these surveys?
Yeah.
And so... I'm sorry, explain.
Yeah. So it's just that the correlate there seems to be that virgins cheat way less.
Right. I think obviously we can, and I don't, obviously correlation is not causation. And so when we talk about causation.
But all causation are correlates.
Sure. But again, you would need to establish causation. I could say that women who have like what you would deem lower body counts would more than likely be religious.
I won't even dispute this. So if you and I agree that correlation is not causation, but all causation is correlation, then we're just looking for strong correlates. And that's what we're going to make.
You would
the
need to
determination.
determine cause.
Well, but cause
And
is
again,
still going to
I
be.
think it's really-
Aren't all causes correlates?
1 second. I think it's really silly to say that relationships fail or people cheat because of necessarily their past experience.
No, I'm not even saying
Really?
that.
Okay. So what is your overarching
I'm
point?
explaining it to you. So if it is the case that we're just looking for strong correlates, this seems to be a really strong correlate.
Okay.
That if you're a virgin, you're going to cheat way less. Now you can make the claim, well, have we determined that that's the cause? Well, I think I think even if you haven't, let's just say that there's some other correlations there, like, I don't know, maybe virgins, like, they don't cheat for some other reason than they haven't been with a bunch of guys. Like, they're just virgins are more likely to be brunettes, let's just say.
They're more likely to what?
Be like brunettes? I don't know.
Brunettes?
Like, I can't think of
Yeah,
what.
I think brunettes cheat less.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
can't think what the correlate would be that would be more strong than less sexual experience leads to less cheating. If virgins
again,
are cheating way less, I can't think of a single. But you are technically correct that correlation is not causation. We need to establish causation.
Mm-hmm.
But from a reasoning standpoint, if you're a man, right?
Can you tell me the
Hang on.
Pew
From
Research
a
study
reasoning
just so I can
standpoint,
pull
I'll link
up?
it to you actually. But
Great, thank you.
From a mystery, send me over that study or the Pew Research data. So
If
anyway,
you just tell me the title.
yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll give it to you. Right, I brought it up in debates and sourced it multiple times. I'll get it to you.
No, I'm.
But anyway, so on the
I'll say
idea,
you won't.
yeah, on the idea of virgins, let's just assume for a second, right,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't have a causation. It's just a really strong correlate.
Mm-hmm.
Me as a rational man, why wouldn't I take that into consideration when doing mate selection? Like, I don't
well-
want to get divorced, right?
I mean, if you do want to enter into marriage, I think that's the obvious goal. Sure.
So then it seems like anything that would reduce me getting a divorce, like having a woman who's much more religious, that's going to reduce the chance of divorce. It's also going to demonstrate to me
I think
that,
there can be other goals, though.
well,
Like,
it's
would
also
you,
going to demonstrate to me if she's not having sex, that
Would you rather be unhappily married or happily divorced?
well, from my religious standpoint, well, from my preference or my religious standpoint?
Either.
Yeah,
Give
from
me
my
both.
preference, I'd rather be happily divorced, preference-wise.
Yeah.
But I still think you have an obligation to stay married, even if you're unhappy, because unhappiness in marriage can be short-term, even
Sure.
if it's only a couple of years. So I still think there's an obligation, especially for kids, to stay
Sure.
together. So anyway.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree.
Yeah, so that aside, we'll leave that for a second. If I look for correlates of things, right, that strongly correlate, that are going to reduce the chances of divorce for me. In this case, a woman cheating is going to greatly increase the chances we get divorced. That's just true. So,
Why?
because if you cheat on me, I'm going to divorce you.
So, but you just said you have a duty.
Yes, but there's threshold breakers for the duty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that a threshold breaker?
Because this would violate the very thing which kept me in the marriage to begin with, which is the religious obligation towards it.
I see. Would the degree of what are we counting as cheating? Is that intercourse?
No.
Okay.
If you just like, even the I have an emotional connection with X, for me, would be cheating.
Oh, really? So if your wife said, I have emotional feelings for this guy, even if she didn't want them, but she just still felt it.
Well, that's different. Well, it depends on the severity. Like, I'm in love with Chad. I don't want to be in love with Chad, but I am. That's it. You're done. That's over.
So
Go be in love with Chad when we're not married.
I'm sorry. So if your wife developed emotional feelings for someone,
Yeah.
but didn't act on them,
Yeah.
that's still done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would
Do
consider
you think
that
you
to
have
be.
control over that?
I think.
I
do I think I
do you
have
think-
control?
Sorry. Do you think someone has control over that,
Yeah.
of developing
Yeah.
emotional feelings
Sure.
for someone else?
Sure. You have tons of control. For instance, you can put yourself in positions where you don't engage with men who aren't your husband, and then you can't develop those feelings. Very simple.
Wow.
Am I wrong?
I mean, you could never talk to anyone ever.
No, you
sure.
could talk
And
to
then,
people.
Well, I mean, that's
But
just.
people, you don't just meet a person and go, "Oh my God, I'm in love." That doesn't.
No,
that's not
I
how that
agree. I
works.
think things happen over.
Yeah, over an
like-
elongated period of time.
agree.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think you have tons of control over that. So, but that aside, back to the
Sure.
idea of virginity. If it is true that virgins cheat less, and that seems to be what the Pew Research poll says, and if you have less than 9. Right, it continuously decreases, and then I don't remember what the number was before it basically flatlines out.
I feel like you're talking about the Institute of Family Studies, which actually said that women with 2 to 9, I believe 2 to 9 partners had less divorce rates than women with 0 to.
Well, no, that was
2
2 to 4. I think.
I believe it was 2 to 9.
No,
because
not
I've
2 to
cited
9.
that several times.
I think it was
myself.
2 to 4, but we can check.
Yeah.
I'll have Brian pull it up when he gets back.
But still,
2 to 4.
it is the higher 2 to 9.
But
than,
let's just-
than virgins and.
Yeah, but if
and
I
people
wanted to
who
make,
have low body.
but let's
count.
just grant it. Let's just even grant the research for family studies, and we'll just say like the 2 to 9, right, have a less divorce rate than even the virgin,
Yeah.
right? Fine, like so.
But
If
then
I
that's
wasn't,
obviously not a cause, right?
yeah, if I wasn't revolted, well, there could be other contributing correlates or confounding factors.
Right, yeah.
But the thing is that if I'm not revolted, so you agree with me that relationships revolve around attraction?
I guess it depends on what you mean by attraction.
Can you have sex with men you're not attracted to?
I mean, I can't know.
Yeah, right. So no, neither can most people. They don't want to have sex with people they're not attracted to. So if you're a person,
Are we just talking about physical attraction?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So if you're not physically attracted to a woman because she's not a virgin,
I mean, I think that's there have been men that I haven't been like physically attracted to, and then I get to know them and they become attractive.
so then you become attracted to them.
Right, but I just want to say it's like not necessarily based on a physical basis, but because of who they are as a person.
But you are attracted to them physically, or you wouldn't sleep with them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Or
So-
emotionally, if you will.
okay, whatever it is. But so for men, physical attraction, and they don't want to sleep with women that they don't find physically attractive. If they find this to be revolting to them, right? That there have been with other men, they find they can't maintain some type of attracted level to the other person. Then what's wrong with them selecting for a virgin?
I would wonder why this is a criteria, because
Because they're not attracted to you if you're not a virgin.
Well, but like, why is that a quality? I think when we talk about like attractiveness, sure, I think there can be metrics that don't necessarily have reason. Like for some reason, I like brunettes more than blondes. I don't know why. But when it comes to specific behaviors, I think that's more of like a philosophical stance than just like this innate, I'm attracted to you because of X degree. I mean,
You think you can
what
help?
if I
You
don't
think you can help what you find
disclose?
attractive?
What if I don't disclose though?
And then you do?
Yeah, so
And then I'm
let's
not
just
attracted
say,
anymore?
Well, let's just say hypothetically
Yeah.
that a beautiful man's attracted to me and like everything is there, the personality, the compatibility, you know, is he really not attracted to me?
Yeah. What if he disclosed to you that he molested children? Would you still be attracted to him?
I think there would still obviously be some feelings for that person. Like,
Would
I
you
just
still
don't-
be attracted to
I
him?
wouldn't stay with him.
Would you still be attracted to him? Or do you think you could that would decrease the attraction level?
I mean, I would definitely be repulsed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
But I don't think that.
So then all that matters is that even if it's revealed to you later and now so basically
So
you were
I
lied
guess
to.
there would be like efficacy or some form of validity, because I think like women engaging in consensual relationships is very different than someone who is engaging like raping children.
But that's not in dispute. It's just if this piece of pertinent information was revealed to you that was not before, could that deviate your attractiveness
Right, but what's
level?
reasonable, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think it's totally reasonable if somebody releases to you that they have slept with 50 men, that you could be repulsed by that. Why is that not reasonable?
Why would it be reasonable?
Because you don't want to envision men having sex with your woman.
So it is a property thing then.
Well, it's not just a property
like an
thing.
ownership
It's a
thing.
revulsion thing.
I don't know. That just seems kind of insecure.
Oh, well, then it's kind of insecure that you won't date a guy based on his past relationship molesting children.
I don't think that's insecurity at all. Like,
Why?
Is that,
Why is that
because
not insecure?
Him molesting children is obviously a heinous act.
But he's reformed now. He's not doing
One
it
second.
anymore.
It's obviously a heinous act where like someone else engaging in a consensual relationship is not. Why would I have an issue that they've had a past partner?
Because all that really matters is what deviates your attractiveness. So for you, it deviates the attractiveness for this person because they did X activity. It's the same thing here.
No, I don't think that is a fair equivalence.
Well, it's 100% a fair equivalence. We're just talking about your attractiveness to X person, and without attractiveness, there can be no sex. There's no relationship.
Right, but I think we have to talk about like essentially what when we look at like societal qualifiers, I think like there are obviously reasonable expectations when it comes to a partner. I just don't know why someone would be repulsed by consensual sex acts.
Why is that?
Previously,
I don't understand.
I feel like you're just kind of saying like men are conditioned into patriarchy to value virginity because they view women
you're not
as
making an
property,
argument.
and that's okay.
Like, you're not making an argument right now. Can men not be attracted to women based on the fact that they have a higher body count? And if the answer is yes, and attraction, is required for there to be sex in a relationship to begin with, then I need an argument for why it is men can't be attracted to only virgins. I need to know that. What is the argument
Well,
against that?
are you attracted to an experience?
You're attracted to the fact that they've had less men they've slept with. That's an attractive quality to you.
How is that attractive?
Because it is. It's attractive
I
to you.
don't think it is because it is.
You think you can help attraction?
I think that attraction can come from aspects of social conditioning, sure.
So you could personally help right now who you're attracted to?
I mean, in some capacity, I think there are levels of conditioning when it comes to society that tell us like what are okay criteria and what are not okay.
So can gay men do that?
What do you mean?
Can they determine that they're not attracted to men?
I mean, that's different. Now we're talking about.
Now it's different.
Yeah, now we're talking about like sexual identity versus like.
No, we're still talking
preferences
about
or
what we're talking
philosophy.
about that we find attractive. Do you think gay men can suddenly just will themselves to not be attracted to other gay men?
Of course not. But,
okay. Well, then how
but
come?
Sexual identity is very different than what we would consider preferences. Do you think if I like find brunettes attractive,
Yeah,
that like I don't find blondes attractive?
Well, wait a second. I'm super confused. I also don't think that you could only find blondes attractive and not find brunettes attractive. So
Right.
you can definitely only find blondes attractive.
So I think that when we talk about social prescriptions,
Yeah.
to say that men have this social prescription to want virgins, to me is
No,
just
I didn't say anything about social prescription.
for men to have this philosophy or preference of wanting virgins
Yeah.
to be again is just essentially like misogynistic conditioning.
Yeah, that's an assertion, right? You're not actually making an argument. So I need an argument for why it was that men couldn't be attracted to women who have not slept with any other men, and that's their preference for attractiveness.
I mean, it's information that only the person can give you.
That's right.
So if I say I am a virgin and that's a not fact true, then...
Yeah, but now we're back to the same issue with the guy who reveals that he diddled kids.
Yeah.
If he tells you he didn't diddle kids, you find him amazing. The second he reveals to you that he did, you find that way less attractive.
I guess I feel like the false comparison here is like you're comparing an immoral act to a non-immoral act.
Well, that's a matter of perspective. I could say that from my perspective, or the Christian perspective, it's an immoral act to have sex outside of marriage. So the less you do that immoral act, the more attractive I find you.
Yeah,
So this is just a perspective when you're talking about the moral aspect. And by the way, because
I think consent being a main basis would be a really good foundation when determining evaluating attractiveness based on sexual history.
Wait, say that again?
I'm sorry. When we're talking about sexual history, I just don't know why consensual mutual acts can be like that. That's not immoral. Engaging with someone consensually is not an immoral action.
From your view. But from the view of the Christian, it is. So if you were a Christian and your preference was to have a Christian woman.
Right, but why does Christianity prescribe that?
What? Who cares? We're just talking about your...
I do think, well, I mean, obviously that's a patriarchal...
Why would that matter when it comes to your preference for attractiveness?
Because obviously it's a patriarchal prescription in order to maintain like male supremacy. So is it, with the Christian purview, is it equal?
Well, I think that religion is the only thing which can account for things like purity, good, bad. They're the only things that give accounts for those things anyway, so... I
disagree with that.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's take something that's super simple if you disagree with that. Justice. Account for justice from a secular worldview. Like it's just as, well, so it's just as just for me if somebody were to murder my daughter for me to murder theirs. That's just as just. Why isn't it? You did a wrong to me, I did a wrong back to you. Right? You got exactly what you deserved back. That seems very just. And yet we don't do that.
Again, I think just isn't necessarily like what is right in terms of punishment, because like obviously you killing the person's daughter doesn't bring your daughter back.
So what does that have to do with justice? The idea is...
I think that would be the justice is where your daughter was never killed.
Yeah, but so you're accounting for it just through preference. So that's fine. You can account...
No, I'm just saying that justice and kind of like retribution or punishment is just not...
The etymology of the word justice, if I remember correctly, is to set to right. That is the idea of justice, to set to right.
Okay.
Or to bring order, something like this. Now, don't quote me on that. I could be wrong about it, but I think that's the etymology is like just setting it right. Yeah. You can literally make that anything you want to be just, right? Anything
well,
that
again,
you
if
did.
Someone's punished, I don't think that's like to set to right.
Punishing somebody?
Correct.
So jail's bad?
I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily like justice in itself, especially within our system. We don't give like victims any access
in our
to
system.
healing and to health.
So justice is just perspective. It can't be accounted for outside of your preference. So the thing is like since none of these...
I would say justice would either be preventing the action from occurring in the future.
You would say.
Stopping.
Me. This is me saying again.
Okay.
No, you're saying.
Yes. Well,
So
I'm defining the concept correct.
Yeah, from whose perspective though?
From mine.
So it's accounted for by your preference.
My preference for what?
To whatever justice is.
Okay.
Right? You're accounting for it through your preference, right?
Sure, like I guess understanding of concept, but I think we can obviously see that like within harm reduction. Like
harm reduction itself is just accounting for
thing.
through your preference again. You want harm reduced. Like my preference could be that I want harm maximized. You can't account for why mine is bad and yours is good other than because you want harm reduced. It's all accounted for through your preference.
Well, I think harm like when we look at harm and suffering, like that is a physiological experience that our bodies do have negative outcomes for. And if we're both going to agree that our subjective experience is essentially what our life is, then the thing of life that we have value would need to be of the best quality to where we have experiences that are desired.
Yeah, but you can have experiences that are desired that you would still be against even if they cause no harm, because you don't have a consistent principle. Like here, I'll give you a great example. Two brothers want to have sex with each other, and they're consenting adults. This is wrong due to what?
If there's no power dynamic, I mean, I don't have a claim against incest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Other than it's just icky, but no.
It's just yucky? What about necrophilia?
So necrophilia, I do think, is obviously what we talked about, like a paraphilic, which I would say in terms of someone's sexual psychology is harmful to them in itself because it has the criteria that you're engaging with someone who's unconscious.
You're not engaging with someone at all.
Well, right, but an entity that is unconscious, if you will.
You're not engaging with an entity at all. You're not engaging with anything, right? From your view, there's no soul, right?
Right.
So then what are you engaging with a dead body?
I mean, obviously, you're having, like, there is still remnants of a person there, even though personhood isn't
There's
present.
no person there.
Personhood isn't present, correct. But
There's nothing there. It's just nothing, right?
I
just,
know.
Just flesh.
I know, but just, again, it's similar to someone if they were unconscious, right?
No. Unconscious, you agree that's still a person. Dead,
Correct.
you agree it's not a person.
Correct.
So then no, it's not
But
the
I
same
mean,
thing.
in terms of the experience that you have as the assailant.
Yeah.
not the experience
What if your
of the-
experience is that you fucking love this and it's great?
I think that's, even if there is pleasure from it, it still is harmful for you.
Prove it. What's the harm? Prove it. How do you demonstrate that's harmful if the person tells you it's not harming me?
Again, when it, like the psychology, it's kind of similar. Like people always say, like serial killers are really happy, like unaliving and murdering people. But I do think there is harm because kind of the concept of like harm is done to you, harm is done to me.
Dude, it's over for you, Brian. There's no
I think
way.
there are psychological profiles of someone's sexual identity that even if they like it, is still harmful to them. It is detrimental.
Yeah, but you can't prove that. You just, like, it's just made up, right? So a person says, if a person's telling you I'm not harmed by this and I absolutely adore it, right? You can't demonstrate that they're harmed by it.
I mean, there are specific ways I think you can through like, I mean, you can't like test for it, sure, as it's happening because of certain brain chemical reactions not being monitored. But I think, thank you. I think you would agree, like, to someone who is like cutting themselves, even though they're happy about it and they love it, they're still harming themselves.
By your definition, actually, I'll just grant it. And by your definition, sure, we can literally see that there's cuts on the arm.
Right, so I'm saying that what is
How do
going
you
on in the
demonstrate-
brain, you
How-
can't see.
So then how do you know it's true, that it's actually harming them? You don't, right? Like, you don't actually know that.
I do, because I think we can measure, again, like when we see aspects of suffering, how that changes your brain and how trauma changes your brain. These are physiological occurrences that change your brain, which are harmful and negative.
You can't demonstrate that a person who tells you they're happy as can be banging a dead body.
I mean, I can't
Like, that's
see
not
their
possi-
brain.
yeah, it's
You're
not
right, but we
possible to
can see
demonstrate
that
it.
people who suffer or have severe trauma have different brain structures. And
They're not
outcomes.
suffering and have no trauma. They love doing this. It's their favorite.
Maybe if they're not conscious of it, sure.
No, they're conscious of it. They just really like it.
Again, I think you can see differences in brain structures when it comes to certain psychological outcomes, even if the conscious is saying this is enjoyable.
So are you saying that there's not a single human being on planet Earth who's a man who's had sex with a dead body and continuously does this, who doesn't just do it because they enjoy it?
Who does it? Like that's not my claim, though.
then what's the harm to him
I'm
from his
telling
perspective?
that there are it changes certain brain structures that are harmful to him, even if he's not aware of it.
Which ones?
I don't know on that one.
Yeah, because it
would depend. It would
it's
depend
totally made up.
specifically.
You can't look at the brain that way and be like, oh, you've 20 dead bodies, and this thing over here is now twisted. That's not how that works.
Sure. Like obviously, I can't say like this region of your brain
Yeah.
is where you did necrophilia.
So really,
this
the
range
harm
of your brain
principle
is where you did like incest. But
so you're just
their
doing the same
brain-
thing, right? You're saying I think that it's harmful because I think it's harmful. I can't really demonstrate it. I just think it is anyway.
I think like psychology, and sure, I acknowledge like I'm not like a neurologist or like
Sure.
a brain
Yeah, I don't
scientist,
expect you to be.
but yes, I do think there is certain things that we can see in the outcomes of like how the brain melds and transforms in response to its environment that we could measure.
And
to
that
be
would
harmful.
happen with every single man who engaged in that activity.
Yes.
Okay, so then would you say that this is the case with women who have many, many sexual partners, that their amount of trauma would increase?
Again, I think it would depend on the experience itself. Like, obviously, I think someone who has been raped several times is going to have a different sexual experience. Maybe having however many bodies you want to associate. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, 10 bodies, but every single one of them raped her. There's going to be a different psychological profile than someone who has engaged in 10 consensual relationships.
I see. Do you think that a person who has engaged in multiple relationships is going to have more baggage than a person who hasn't?
I think it depends.
Just generally, on average.
I see. It's hard to give that generalization because I think it depends on the quality of the relationship.
Okay.
Or the experience of the relationship. Do I think if someone might have had like 2 or 3 really toxic romantic relationships, they might have more baggage than someone who might have like 4 or 5 one-night stands because they don't have.
But all of them are going to have more baggage than a person that had no relationships.
Who's had no relationships or no sex?
No relationships.
I mean, I don't know. I think incels have a lot of baggage, and a lot of them are virgins.
No, not relationship-based baggage.
What do you mean by that?
Like, for instance, if you're in a relationship with a man for, 5 years or something like this, and it ends in complete, like, it's just a fucking disaster.
Sure.
Right? It's going to create trauma for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would prefer not to deal with that trauma. And I would say that women who experience that trauma would not experience that trauma if they weren't in that relationship. So the idea here is same thing with sex, right? Is that the more sexual partners you have, the more chance for trauma. So
I think it depends kind of, again, on a lot of multitude of different things. Like, I mean,
here, I'll give you an example.
I would say I had more trauma from the dissolution of my marriage than I did from all other casual relationships combined.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Totally. So being with a divorcee would be trauma, right? That they would have more baggage just on average than someone who wasn't a divorcee.
I would have, like, a divorcee
Just
has
generally,
more baggage.
yeah, probably has more baggage than someone who's not been divorced.
I mean, sure, I can grant that more likely.
So now we're starting to whittle down sexual selection. So if we're just talking about trauma, or are we talking about things like this? I would say that, for instance, is it okay for a man to have a preference not to be with a woman who was raped because he doesn't want to deal with her baggage?
I wouldn't necessarily place the preference on being raped, but essentially like their emotional state and kind of where they are within their capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that would be fine.
It would just depend on, again, it's not the criteria of have they been raped or not. It's kind of where they are within, that experience. Was it 10 years ago and they've really healed from that? Was it yesterday and, they're having a nervous breakdown? Again, that would just be context dependent.
Yeah, but that baggage exists due to the fact that there was a rape. And you would agree with me that...
I think that baggage can morph itself in different formats.
I agreed. Yeah. But in this case, it came from that. So, in other words, I guess
I just don't think you should make assumptions on that and evaluate
Maybe not,
the person.
But do you agree with me that rape is traumatizing for women?
Yes.
So,
I think it's traumatizing for anyone.
Sure.
I guess not you, but...
Do you think that since it's traumatizing for women, that men should probably look at it as a red flag? If they don't want to deal
What do
with
you mean a red flag?
trauma, they don't want to deal with a woman's trauma.
I mean, it can certainly be like I'm trying to think, like a point, like something you note, but I think you should be evaluating the person that you're with based on their behavior and your interaction with them, not necessarily predetermined facts.
All predetermined facts or just some?
I mean, you're going to go back, I'm sure, to the child molester.
Well, I'm just pointing out like the
Yeah.
consistency aspect here. It seems like it's perfectly acceptable for men to have preferences where they say, I rule you out because I just don't want to deal with this ever. And
I mean,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like force someone to be like, oh no.
But I mean, it sounds
date
legitimate.
person X.
What's illegitimate about a man saying, I want a virgin because I feel revolted when a woman's not one?
I think he needs to unpack why he feels revolted.
Okay, so he unpacks it and he discovers why, but he still is.
Well, what's the reason?
I don't know. But whatever it is, he knows what it is, but he can't just shut it off. Like,
Well, maybe then he doesn't need to. I mean, so
what's wrong with that?
do you support like large age gaps?
Sure.
Is there any criteria?
Not really.
No. So you're fine with a 45-year-old dating an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can come back to the age. We can come back
Well, I
to the
want to
age
finish
gap.
this like real quick. We're all right there.
Andrew, the pineapple pizza.
I'm not eating it.
Andrew,
I told you I wasn't going to eat it. I'll literally throw up, bro. I can't do it. It's so gross to me.
All
It's
right.
like, it's so gross.
will you eat a singular pineapple? You won't even.
way.
You don't like pineapple?
Dude, it makes me sick, literally.
Like you won't
Is
eat
it just
pineapple
pineapple
on
or
its
is
own?
it-
No.
Pineapple juice?
Nope. Nothing.
Are you allergic to it?
No, it just makes me like feel sick.
Are you feeling a bit uncomfortable that it's even that close
I don't
to
care
you?
if it's close to
Like
me.
skin contact's okay.
Yeah.
But ingesting pineapple is a no-go.
Yeah. Don't you have like a food you really hate?
Sure.
That's that.
What
for
is
me.
it?
Well, I have an actual allergy to something.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but what's the food you hate though?
Shit, that's a hard one. Horseradish
Oh, delicious.
or sauerkraut.
That's okay.
I don't like sauerkraut.
I hate sauerkraut.
I don't like sauerkraut.
But that's all. That's because cabbage. Gross.
Yeah. Do you want to eat some of your pizza, or are you?
I
guys-
mean, I'm fine, but if
I'm
you're forcing,
I'm the only one who's going to be
if
eating.
you're forcing people to eat, like
I'm just alone here eating a pineapple
Well, it's a good
pizza.
time. Let her eat a piece of pineapple pizza, and I'll have a smoke. We'll finish this thing.
Yeah, you guys want to?
I mean,
do a
I'm
little
not
bathroom
hungry,
break?
so that's
well,
why.
But you want to do bathroom break? Andrew needs a smoke.
We can do that
And then
real
we'll go for what, another
where were
30
we?
minutes?
I already
Yeah.
forgot.
But before you guys get up, I do want to let a couple chats come through really quick here. So we have,
he looks pissed at you.
let's see.
You look really mad at him.
donated $100.
Sure, that's not working.
Myron wants to collab. He already reached out to you and maybe the master debater as well. Would love to see you all together. /
Yeah, well, Andrew, you've been on their show a couple times, so hold on. We got some other chats coming. Daddy, thank you. Oh, my God, I can't believe I said that.
Wow.
Thank you for the, oh, my God, that's ridiculous. Okay. We have Lucas here.
Lucas donated $100. For the love of God, with these gender studies nebulous talking points 3, what virginity is defined as. How ABT no hymen, no diamond. If it's good enough
No
for
hymen, no
kings,
diamond is
it's good enough
crazy.
for me.
Wait, sorry, just repeat it. Just I don't know if they heard.
No hymen, no diamond is crazy.
Oh, okay. All right. No hymen, no diamond. It's crazy. Why is it crazy? Just for Lucas, because he's curious.
I mean, I think when we, again, I just don't know why men fetishize someone who has little sexual experience.
Why would it be a problem even if they did?
Because I think when we're talking about like someone who's making decisions or someone who's well balanced and well rounded, that obviously with more experience you make better decisions.
Well, this assumes that the person has more sexual experience and the person has none.
What?
Like, well, you can. I don't understand. Why can't you fetishize a woman
Who's
having
had no sexual experience?
and have no sexual experience yourself?
It's bad. It's not good.
I think when you are centering the fact that she doesn't have sexual experience, then that is because you have more opportunity to manipulate, to coerce, to abuse.
Oh, I see. So then I just gotta quickly ask, if the roles are reversed, if a woman selects on a man based on the fact that he hasn't gone out and slept with a bunch of women. So let's say that there's a man in town and he's pretty well known for being a ladies' man. The women all like him a lot and he bangs a lot of them. And this woman doesn't really like that. She thinks that that's kind of ick. You think that she really shouldn't find it very icky, right?
Should she find it icky that he slept with a lot of women?
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Does she?
I don't.
Is that okay?
I don't think that this idea that like having multiple consensual relationships means that you're icky.
Oh, I see. So I just want to make sure I got it clear. If you went to a town and there was a guy in the town who had a reputation for fucking a lot of women, like he just did this a lot, you wouldn't make any preconceived judgments about him maybe being a playboy? Maybe being a player.
I guess what you mean by playboy or player.
Like he doesn't like to commit. He likes to play the field. He likes to have a lot of sex.
Why
he likes to maybe lie to get into women's pants. Like the preconceived notions which would come with a guy who normally has sex with a lot of women.
Why am I making this assessment?
Because you are a pattern recognition machine and notate that.
Am I engaging with him?
Well, I'm just going to ask you flat out. Have you ever known guys like that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the types of guys that you know who are like that, aren't they generally players?
And so, again, just so I understand the criteria that you mean by player, are they just someone who is interested in casual sex? Or are you also adding that criteria that they use the means of manipulation in order to gain access
all
to
the
sex?
above. They like all of that.
I wouldn't necessarily place the criteria that he uses the means of manipulation, but could I say he has an interest in casual sex? Sure.
You wouldn't ever associate any negative characteristics with him, though, just because he had slept with a lot of women?
Sure. Correct.
Never?
Nope. As long as I'm aware that they're consensual.
Would it give you the ick?
No.
No?
No.
Could you foresee that there's other women who it would give them the ick?
Sure.
Then why can't it give the ick to the man?
Give the ick to the man?
To a man.
Again, I think this is just kind of like certain social purviews that we see within society to where somehow having multiple consensual relationships is dirty or gross, and kind of I just think
so
this
you
falls
think the
again
women
into
shouldn't have the ick?
In purity culture.
Okay, so you think that women shouldn't have the ick?
I think it's the reverse of purity culture, right?
Right. So
it just depends on what your goals are in terms of...
So then virgins should give men who've had a lot of sexual partners a chance.
Yeah, I don't think you shouldn't base your decision making based on their body count.
I agree. We don't have anything to argue about. If a woman has no body count and a man has a really, really high body count, she should not make any preconceived judgments about him and should date him and should not assume for a second that man just wants to take her virginity. She should not assume that.
Okay.
Right?
No, I don't think she should assume that.
Okay, good.
No.
Then I think we're on the same page here.
Okay.
All right.
I'll let agree. Wow, a shocker.
Let some other chats. I saw you kind of eyeball